Continue. Perfect. Okay. Well, I think we can start. There's nobody in the meeting room. So hello, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Carolina Reynoso, one of the 2 project management managers at Legal, and I'll be one of your interviewers today. We also have Yuna here. She's the other project management manager. And well, Yuna, if you would like to introduce yourself.
Yes. Hi, I'm Yuna. I'm one of the other project development managers, and I'll be the other half interviewer for the second half. I'm a psych major in second year, and I'm so excited to interview you today.
Perfect. And thank you again for your time, Meeghan. And we're so really excited to have you here, and we're just glad that you could join us today and talk to us about your experience as a woman in the legal field. So to start off, can you briefly introduce yourself and tell us a bit about your story?
Yeah, well, thank you for having me. My name is Meeghan. I'm a 6th year litigation associate at Fox Rothschild in the Century City office. I graduated from the University of Laverne for my undergraduate degree in political science in 2015. And then I graduated from USC Law School in 2018. I did start at University of San Diego Law School for my first year, and then I transferred to USC Law. After that, I went to a small firm and then a mid-size, and now at Big Law.
Perfect. Oh, that's so exciting. That's for like a few ago, no? But that's great. And so did you always think that law school was for you? Or did you have like some second thoughts? Like what got you into law?
No way. I did not think I would be a lawyer. I don't know what I wanted to be, but it certainly was not a lawyer. I don't know why I got into law. I think because I just liked writing and researching. And that is literally all I do every day, all day. But it's fun. I like it, and it's challenging. I actually have grown to love trials. I was just in a trial last week in San Jose. So yeah, it's been a lot of fun, a good learning experience. And I forgot to mention I do intellectual property and entertainment law, which makes the law less mundane.
Okay. Oh, well, actually about that, I was actually wondering why, like you wanted to focus on entertainment. Was it something that you always thought of, or did it just suddenly come, like you suddenly wanted to do it in your second year or in your first year? How did that come about?
Yeah, so I kind of have a background in entertainment. I did a little bit of acting, a little bit of singing when I was younger, and I worked with a lot of contracts in terms of like copyrights and trademarks. So I kind of felt like I already had that preliminary knowledge. But in law, I wanted to go into it. I got a certificate in media and entertainment at USC. But when I graduated, it's such a niche area of law. It's so hard to get into that I just took any job I kind of could get. And then I kind of was just like, I like litigation in general. I don't really need to do entertainment or IP. I can do that later on if I want to. And that's just kind of how I got there somehow. I have no idea how.
It's like no idea how, but it happened, and
it happened. It was meant to be.
It was meant to be, essentially. Well, that's perfect. Well, since we got the basics, I think I'm gonna moving on to Yuna now with law school preparation questions.
Yes. So about your prep for law school, do you have any advice for like networking with professors and securing recommendation letters?
Yes, that was crucial to getting into law school. You have to have a really good professor or professors to write you really good recommendation letters. So the way I did it, it's kind of like a job interview. It's kind of like networking at a job. You want to go to office hours. Obviously, you want to do well. You want to show initiative and that you're willing to be challenged. Ask a lot of questions in class, get yourself noticed, talk to the professor before and or after class. I think office hours is really an underestimated way of getting to know the professor. Not a lot of people even go to office hours, so you get that like one-on-one time with the professor to not only chat about, the class and the substance, but also about your life, if you guys get along. And those are the kinds of professors that will really write you an amazing recommendation letter, is one that wants to get to know you and does know you on a more personal level. Because I know those classes can be huge. So you really got to make sure you make yourself stand out.
Perfect, thank you. Office hours is very difficult to go to, but recommended. Do you have any advice for students who will have to take the LSAT?
That was so traumatizing for me. I would say take a lot of practice tests. It is so hard and for like no reason at all. I would start pretty early. I started 6 months before I took the LSAT, which was not enough time at all. I would start a year before. I took practice stuff with Blueprint. I thought they were really good. I did in-person courses. They have stuff that you can do online too. I personally like going in person because it just puts me in the mindset and puts me in the environment. But yeah, start early, take a ton of practice tests, both timed and untimed. And I mean, practice makes perfect. It's very unlikely you'll get a 180, but get as close as you can.
You did kind of already answer this, but like, what did you do to prepare for the application process? Is there anything else on top of that, or?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I applied to law school 8 years ago, and I feel like it's already changed so much. I didn't have too many extracurriculars, but I think that's what they're looking for now. When I talk to recruiters at schools, just anything that kind of shows that you're taking initiative in your career. Obviously, get a really good LSAT score. That is probably the most important thing. A lot of law schools will tell you it's LSAT and GPA, but it's definitely more LSAT. That's going to help you get more scholarships and just really put you out in front of the others, because anyone can get a really good GPA. I mean, you have 4 years to do it, right? So you want to get a good LSAT. In terms of the essay, the personal essay, I would say tailor that to the specific schools that you're applying as much as possible. So when I transferred to USC, I made my essay all about how my mom, how I grew up with my mom talking about SC my whole life. It was like so important to her. It was such a huge impact on her life. And so it became a huge thing for me. And that's why I wanted to go there, not because of the ranking, not because of the programs. Obviously, USC has a really good program for entertainment and IP, but I didn't focus on that at all. I focused on what USC meant to me. And I think that's really important, because the person reading your essay is still a person, like you want to get the heartstrings. And that's, I think that's the best way to do it.
Okay, yeah, because, oh, sorry, Yuna.
Oh no, I was just gonna say I was passing it on back to you.
Oh yeah, well, actually, because I went to a panel yesterday with a USC also alumni, and that's what they especially said, like, make sure to say why this law school specifically, and tell your story. I think that that's one of the biggest takeaways that every admissions officer was sharing with us. And I did have one question regarding the networking with professors and securing recommendation letters. Would you recommend it to be specifically with professors within your major, or professors that have to do with your GEs? Like, is there any better, or do you think both would be completely fine in your opinion?
I would say a professor who teaches any kind of writing, like you do a lot of essays in that class, anything with regards to like a lot of research. I think that's more important. As if you're getting, a recommendation letter from a professor who only gives out like multiple choice exams, I just don't think, maybe they know you on a personal level and can give like a character assessment of you, but you're going into a profession where writing is 90% of what you're doing, right? And that's at least for litigation. And corporate too, in terms of like contract drafting. But if you get a professor who has seen your writing multiple times over throughout the year, has seen how you can articulate yourself, how you make arguments in a persuasive essay, I think that is way more beneficial.
Okay, got it. Well, I'll keep that in mind for sure. And okay, well, moving on to law school based questions. So since we've already mentioned USC, how was your experience at USC?
I loved it. I was there for the last 2 years. My first year at San Diego was just like torture. Everyone will tell you the first year is really, really hard. If you can get away with studying the night before for an exam in undergrad, you're not going to get away with that in law school, especially not your first year. I think the first year kind of like tests you to see if you can really take, you're learning all the core classes that you're going to be tested on the bar exam. So it's one, a whole new environment, two, a whole new language that you're learning, right? You're reading things not in a narrative sense, but in an opinion that cites all these legal cases, and you have to figure out what that means and what is precedent and what's persuasive and what can you rely on and what you can't. So yeah, first year is going to be hard. I studied maybe like 12 to 16 hours a day, 6 days a week. And I cried a lot, to be honest with you. But and that was just my personal experience. Some people actually can get away with studying the night before, although it's very hard to do. And you're going to get cold called a lot, just like picked on by professors. But second and third year is a lot easier. You get to focus on classes in the fields that you want to focus on. USC in particular was great. Everyone is very competitive. I will say that, especially at T20 schools, even more so as you get closer to, T10. You kind of make all your friends during first year, and then you start to get to know each other more your second and third year, but you definitely want to keep all your friends close for networking purposes later. These are going to be people that you're growing with and could be your potential clients. So yeah, my experience in law school was great in general after the first year.
Okay, well, perfect. That gave me a little bit of hope. That gives me a lot. But okay, so we got among like the competitiveness among students, but I was actually also wondering about how were the professors and resources that were offered to you guys? How did that help you throughout your experience there?
Yeah, professors in law school are also important for like recommendation letters if you want to apply for like a clerkship later. The classes are quite huge, especially first year, so you also want to make sure you try and stand out. The professors are, they do this day in, day out, so they're they can be a little cold sometimes in class, but if you go to office hours, of course, they're there to help you and they want you to succeed. I'm sure you know, but there's a curve in law school, so that works a little bit against you. You're kind of in a competitive environment as is against your peers. Resources, career offices at law schools are kind of hit or miss depending on which law school you're at. You really have to put in your own work in terms of reaching out to people at firms or companies that you want to work at and asking for a coffee, asking for lunch, and reaching out to them and saying, I'd love to learn more about what you do in your company because I'm interested in applying to your company. And those are the connections that will help you also maybe get your foot in the door one step ahead of someone else who hasn't done that.
So what I'm understanding, networking for sure, and just getting out there. That's the other.
Yeah, you really got to take the initiative.
Okay. Yeah, and I'm guessing the same thing. I mean, in undergrad, it's a bit different, but of course it goes tenfold once you're in law school for sure.
Yeah.
So the other question that I had for you was, what was the most challenging thing for you during law school and what you did to overcome it?
I mean, for me, it was transferring, right? Because I made all my friends during first year, and that's when you really bond with people, and then you leave and you join a school where everyone's already made their friends, and then you're just kind of like this outlier. And as you said, networking is very, very important in law school. So it was a little bit working against me there. But I mean, I didn't realize that you could even transfer, that was an option after your first year. But I think that's important for people to know. I think USC required top 20% and other stuff. But that was like their biggest point. So if you're in the top of your class, you can transfer out. And unfortunately, it's really, really important to go to a well-ranked law school because employers really care about that, especially if you're going into bigger law firms. They're very old school like that. So I chose a better ranking school over connections that I made in San Diego. So I kind of lost those, and I had to really work double time to make connections at USC. So that was kind of difficult for me.
Okay, I see. But you overcame it. That's
Yes.
well, that's great. And then since we're flip-flopping between like law school and undergrad, I was also wondering, what is one thing that you wish you had known in undergrad that would have helped you in your transition to law school? Because I know you transitioned again from USD and then USC, but I was wondering like what would have helped you prior in a sense in undergrad, maybe that specifically.
Yeah. I wish I knew that once you get into law school, you've already started your career as an attorney. You are not taking summers off to vacation or travel, which I naively did my first summer. After my first year of law school, I just like studied abroad, which was like fun, but I didn't know that you were supposed to be working that summer. And that's kind of how you secure your growth, especially in big law. You start with a first year summer associate position after your first year. And then if you're accepted back, you do your second year at the same firm or a better one. And then if they like you after your second year, then you not automatically, but they'll give you an offer to come back as a first year. So, your interviews start, I think, the end of your first semester. So your first semester in law school is crucial. So in terms of that too, I wish that I had started reading any kind of cases beforehand so I could start to understand the language and like what I was getting myself into, instead of going in blind and just being like, oh, I'll learn it when I get there. Like, no, that wasn't good. So I would order books, case books, before law school, or just like any book about how to prepare for law school, and read those first, to kind of get used to the language. Sorry, my dog is here.
Oh, no worries, that's so cute. But okay, that's really good advice because I had never really thought of doing that before. So that's another note I'll keep in the back of my brain for sure.
Yeah.
But okay, I'm gonna give it back to Yuna again.
I'm back. Okay, so Now we're gonna kind of focus on your life currently as a lawyer, and we were wondering, as shown in your TikTok videos, if you could give us like a rundown of your day.
Yeah, it's so different every day, but like the last 2 days I had hearings in person. So on Monday I had a hearing in person in downtown LA. Yesterday I had a hearing in person in San Bernardino. So it's just like everywhere. You're going everywhere. And obviously you bill for like all that time, but it's exhausting, it's tiring, and I'm so used to doing like remote calls too. But yesterday I did my hearing and I left my house at about 6:30 for an 8:30 hearing. And I got there about half an hour before just to prep for oral arguments on a motion that I had submitted. There's a tentative order that the court issued the day before, and it was not in my favor, which means that I need to show up, show the court that this is important, and then argue it. Generally, if you're the prevailing party on the tentative, you don't really need to show up because the judge is already kind of on your side. But I thought, I'm kind of on the losing side here. I got to show up and really argue my case. So there are a couple cases that are heard before me. Usually oral arguments are last because they also hear like trial setting stuff and just administrative stuff in other cases. Unfortunately, I lost, but I fought hard, I thought, and called my partner and the client afterwards and just kind of had to update them. Took me about an hour to get back. And then I had to write a motion for the trial that I was in last week in San Jose. That trial is still going. I'm just not there, and I'm working from here to support the partners at trial. So doing a lot of behind the scenes. Just writing motions to exclude evidence. That's what I did yesterday. I spent about 9 hours of billable time in addition to the hearing that I did. So I stayed up until about 2 a.m. this morning to work on that motion because they needed it this morning. And of course, I think that's a special circumstance because it's trial. I don't necessarily stay up that late all the time, but it does happen. So yeah, I think yesterday I billed about 13, 14 hours. So a special day, but yeah. In my TikTok videos, you don't get to see all that because it's all so confidential. Like I can't show my hearings in the courtroom. I can't show the brief that I'm writing, right? It's just kind of like me typing and that's kind of it. But like I'm researching and I'm writing, so.
Well, you were booked and busy. I know that like through like media and stuff, we have like a conception of what being a lawyer is like, but is there anything like behind the scenes that you want to tell us about like the reality of being a lawyer?
It's definitely not anything like Suits. It's not anything like Legally Blonde. I mean, it's a lot of hours. It is a lot of work. It's very quiet in the office. Like you're not running around to Harvey's office and being like, look at what I found. And then he looks at it and he's like, oh my God, like this is it. Like this is going to win our case. Like that never happens, at least not in my lifetime. You kind of just like email each other back and forth and like chat on Teams or whatever. And you're like, hey, I found this. It might be helpful. And the partner will be like, okay, I'll look at it later. So it's very anticlimactic. I think it also has become a lot more chill, at least in my office and at least in LA. I feel like since COVID, I'm working from home 3 days a week, 2 sometimes, depending on what's happening in the office. I'm not wearing a suit to the office. I'm wearing a suit if I go to court, obviously. And if I do a remote hearing where I'm on Zoom, I'll just like put on a blazer and then I'll take it off when I'm done. And sorry. What else? It's not so fast paced. I think that's the case during trial, which by the way happens in 0.1% of cases. I've been fortunate enough to go to trial twice this year, but this year I had my very first trial, and I've been an attorney for 5 years. And, you know, all trial lawyers are litigators, but not all litigators are trial lawyers. There are some partners in litigation who have never gone to trial, and they've been practicing for 30 years. So it's a very unique opportunity. If you want to do that, take any chance you get, right? This trial that I'm in is in San Jose. I flew up there for 3 days, came back down. But I was working like 24/7. I slept like 4 hours a night. And then it's going until December 1st. So, you know, you have all this time that you're in trial, and you're just constantly working. You're working on pretrial stuff, jury instructions, picking out what kind of jurors you need, what kind of jurors you want and don't want, exhibits. You're working with a whole team of people. So it is as exciting in suits if you're in trial. Otherwise, it's like literally so boring.
Oh, thank you. I didn't realize the amount of like things that like you, wow, that sounds really stressful, but honestly it also kind of sounds a little bit fun, like on trial at least.
It's definitely
Also,
stressful, for sure.
yeah, the 4 hours of sleep does sound very stressful.
Yeah.
You have mentioned that on your platform there's like non-traditional careers for those pursuing a JD degree. Do you know like any other careers that a law degree can like help someone achieve, that someone can achieve?
Yeah, there are so many reporters on the radio and on TV who are actually either attorneys or they went to law school. You know, I didn't realize that until I had researched like what can you do with a law degree if I don't become an attorney, just in case I like failed. I'm like, what else can I do with this degree? Of course, there's politicians who are almost always lawyers. The reporters thing kind of surprised me. I don't know that I would recommend that. Obviously, I'm not in that field, so I don't know if that helps or not. But kind of gives you a different perspective, right? And gives you a lot of skill in terms of researching and writing and making your reports. What else? A lot of professors have JDs. If you want to become like a law professor, that's one thing. And some people just get law degree because they're like super curious, intellectually curious, and then they go off and just do like marketing, or like they start their own business. They become an entrepreneur so that they don't have to rely on lawyers because they kind of have the background themselves. So I feel like you can apply to a lot of things besides just being a lawyer.
Thank you. I have also Googled that in case. But for our final question, and we always ask this question at the end of our interviews, but are there any last words of advice you'd like to impart to our undergrad students who are considering like pursuing a career in law?
Yes. And this kind of goes to the question that you asked, which was, you know, is there anything I wish I did before law school? I would do your research on law school and the profession. The best way I think you can do that, which I didn't do, which I learned about later, is, you know, you have a law school on your campus. I would sit in on a class, sit in on a couple of classes to see, you know, do you like the way that the class is being taught? Do you like what's being taught? You know, is it interesting to you? Are there certain classes that are more interesting to you than not, which will help you kind of figure out what kind of field are you interested in? I always get a lot of requests about like, can I shadow you at work? That is virtually impossible because everything is so confidential. But I would say go to a courthouse. Those hearings are public, right? And I mean, if you want to be a litigator, right? If you go to a courtroom and just walk into, if you go to a courthouse and just walk into a courtroom, there's almost certainly a hearing going on. And maybe people are appearing remotely over the phone, so no one's actually in court, but so what? You get to listen, right? And they're totally free, totally public. Or even trial. There could be a trial going on, right? And you get to watch that, and you get to see the evidence they put up. You get to see cross-examination of a witness, the Johnny Depp trial in person, right? Like there are so many courthouses in Southern California too. I love the federal courthouse on Hill Street, which is right across from California Superior Court, State Court, Stanley Mosque, both in downtown LA. You could just walk across the street to one if there's nothing going on in the other, which there almost certainly is. Go to their websites, look up the judges' schedules. All their schedules are public. So you don't have to go in and look for something. You can go on the website and find something before you go and kind of plan ahead. Orange County, San Bernardino, Riverside, there's courthouses in every city. So definitely take advantage of that and see if that's something that you want to do.
Okay, that's perfect, because I had already like heard about sitting in classes here at UCLA Law, but never really, sitting in an actual trial.
Yeah, I mean, it's totally public and free and accessible. So definitely something you should look into. Yeah.
Yeah. And I remember like even one of the admissions officers yesterday in the panel like shared, hey, also if you want to go to USC, just sit in the class, make an appointment and see how you like it. So definitely gonna consider that for the future.
Yeah, exactly.
But there was a good point, or I guess you could say like some vocab that I noticed that you had also mentioned in your TikToks. Like you would always write it on your little whiteboard. And those were like billable and non-billable hours. If you
Yes.
could share what that is specifically, because I'm not sure if everybody here knows what those are.
Yes, that's a great question. So billable hours are those hours where you kind of work like substantive stuff. Every firm is a little bit different, but I think it's essentially the same. So hours that you can bill to the client are things like writing and drafting motions, reviewing client documents. Things that you can't bill that are non-billable are like administrative things. So if you are submitting a motion to be filed or filing the actual motion, which actually your assistant does, that time that you spend arranging that or doing that cannot be billed to the client. And then, of course, there's things that don't even benefit the client, like mentoring another associate or mentoring a law student, recruitment stuff. But you still can input your time as non-billable time, and a lot of firms will give you credit for that non-billable time towards your billable hour requirement. So like at my firm, we have 1,900 hour billable requirement for the year. 50 of that can be recruitment, diversity initiatives, and business development. So like taking a client out to dinner, a potential client out to dinner. And my firm gives associates a marketing budget. So I can do that and I don't have to spend my own money, which is really nice. And a lot of firms actually do that also. So you have the opportunity to grow your book of business that way, and also to like build your presence in the firm by doing recruitment and diversity initiatives. But of course, your main focus is your billable hours, your substantive work, your attending a hearing, even the traveling to the courthouse and back, that's all billable, right? Because you're not going there for fun. You're going there for the client. So like my hearing yesterday, I billed about 4 hours for it, even though I was only in the courtroom for about 30 minutes, because the drive is crazy and the 10 freeway is closed, and that's not my fault. So the client takes all that in the billable hours, and it's really just substantive work versus non-substantive work.
Okay, got it. That was a perfect explanation of it. Video. But so I think we're gonna move on to our small Q&A session. So if anybody has any questions to ask Meeghan, if you could drop it in the chat and we'll read it off, just so there's no confusion in between, people cutting each other off. Okay, we got one from Risha. I would love to hear more about your transition to Big Law. I know it can be really hard to break into. Was there anything in a specific you did that you think helped you? Or any steps you can take as an undergrad in law school that could help you?
That's a very loaded question. Big Law, you hear a lot of people in Big Law, but only about, I'd say less than 20% of people are actually in Big Law, probably less than that, like 10%. But that's, obviously what's shown on TV and shown in the media, but there are a lot of firms that are way smaller, that you kind of either go to or start off in. So I started at a small law firm in Riverside, and I kind of did, I think, a year of experience there. And then I moved up to a mid-sized law firm. I did that because the smaller law firm didn't really give me any training. At least I felt like formal training. And then at the mid-sized firm, I did get training. I got a lot of great experience, but I was working as many hours as you would expect to do in Big Law. So then I was like, well, I'd rather get paid Big Law salary to do Big Law hours, right? So then I transitioned into Big Law. If you are not in a big law firm, either your first or second summer as a summer associate, it's very unlikely that you will get into Big Law right out of law school. You have to secure those summer associate positions to get an offer as a first year associate in Big Law, which is why I said it's really important to do very well your first semester. Of course, your first year, but specifically your first semester, because that's all they're going to see in your first interview with them. And obviously practice your interviews. Don't be rigid. I was like so rigid, but schools offer a lot of resources in terms of helping you to interview. I would also reach out to those bigger law firms that you want to apply to, alumni that went to your school, and just say, I'm really interested in your firm. I'm interested in your summer associate program. I really want to apply, but I'd love to take you out for coffee to chat about it first, so I can really understand what it is that I'm applying to and make sure that it's the right fit for me. Lawyers love that, especially because they get to talk a lot. Lawyers love to talk. I am not an exception to that. So if you take them out for coffee and let them talk for 30 minutes, that's huge. And they know your name, they know your face, and they can tell the recruitment department, hey, this girl is applying. She reached out to me, and she showed initiative by asking me to coffee. And I am on the recruitment committee at my firm, and these are the things that we talk about. The people who reached out before applying, the people who reached out after an interview to say, actually, I'd love to learn more. Can I take you out to coffee outside of the interview process? Of course, it's still an interview, but, so I hope that helped. That was kind of like a long-winded answer.
No, but that's perfect, actually. And then Hala also had another question. She says, hello, I'm currently an intern at the ABA, and I wanted to ask, from your professional recommendation, how do you see internships during law school impact job security after graduating?
Read that to me again one more time.
Okay, she says, hello, I'm currently an intern at the ABA, and I wanted to ask, from your professional recommendation, how do you see internships during law school impact job security after graduating?
During law school, I think internships are good. Obviously, any kind of practical experience that you can get during law school will be very beneficial. Anytime you can get experience writing, observing, like a trial, researching, all of that is great. Any kind of experience where you get to do something is great. You don't want to just be like getting coffee or whatever, which is really important in the interview process when you are interviewing for internships, asking what responsibilities you will get, because you want to make sure that you get actual responsibility. You want to ask if you're going to be afforded opportunities to listen in on client calls, listen in on meetings where decisions are being made. Even if you're just there to listen and not do anything, you want to see it. You want to be there, right? You want the exposure. So I think that is absolutely beneficial to do internships during law school.
Okay, well, perfect. I hope that was helpful to whoever asked the question. And they say thank you very much for the feedback. And I guess, does anybody else have a question for Meeghan? I guess we can wait a second.
Yeah, and I'm happy to put my email. I'll put my email in the chat for anyone who wants or comes up with a question later.
Okay.
Happy to chat with anyone afterwards, or if you want to shoot me an email and we can chat on our own. Yeah.
Oh, Naomi asks, what would you have done if you realized law did not work out for you?
Some people go to law school and they say, I'm not looking for my JD, I'm looking for my MRS. I was trying to do that simultaneously. No, I don't know. Oh my God, I really don't know. Like I honestly don't even have an answer for that. I'd like to think that I am like a creative in a parallel universe. But I don't know. I always wanted to be a vet, but like only to dogs, because I'm allergic to cats and I hate reptiles. Maybe a doggy daycare entrepreneur.
It makes sense to either.
Totally different from law and probably less stress. So.
It worked out. That's the important part.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, well, I think that will be it. I don't really see any other questions. Personally, all the questions I had were already on the document. So if everybody feels good about it, I think we're going to end the session. I just want to thank everybody for coming. I really appreciate everybody's time, and I hope that you guys got a lot of valuable feedback. And thank you so much, Meeghan, for coming. We really appreciate your time and all your advice. It was really helpful.
Of course. Thank you for having me. And it was nice to meet you guys, and good luck. And I put my email in the chat, so feel free to send an email if you want or whatever.
Yeah, and if anybody, wants to go back to the session, we will be posting it on YouTube, just so, people know in advance. Well, thank you. I hope everybody has a great day. Bye.
Bye.
Oh, I'm gonna end it. Okay. Bye, guys. Have a great day.